Hello, everyone. So, today I'd like to give a presentation about why Mr. Pajama Sam's latest video here is frankly kind of idiotic and weirdly smug and arrogant for his video, which is very strange because usually he's so somewhat warm and welcoming to people in fighting game communities, but the way he seems to be treating people and shooters like, as he describes it, cavemen discovering fire, was frankly very dismissive, and the fact that he was completely fucking wrong about everything he was talking about during this video kind of made me want to make a response. So I don't make videos. This is going to be extremely crude. I don't have a script, so I'm going to be stumbling on my words. But hopefully I can show you that this man has frankly no fucking idea what he's talking about when it comes to hitboxes, hurtboxes, and where those terms mean and where they come from. So, during this video, he shows a clip where some shooter players are, discussing whether or not this little axe, for some reason, can attack further, and then he says that it's probably whiff punishing, which does somewhat make sense. Most shooter players don't give a shit about whiff punishing because weapons tend to have infinite range, and the only ones that don't are melee weapons. But even then, you're essentially like going in and out of each other's attack range with, just constantly. So like, and the range of your weapon really isn't that visible, and there's no way to gauge how far you are from the other person since it's a first-person view. But it's such a rare occasion. People don't typically melee each other in shooters. So it's not a situation that comes up that often, so I don't understand this very dismissive attitude. And it's like, I just don't understand. Like, it's not a relevant discussion to have in shooters. But going beyond that, so he starts talking about how these shooter players are talking about how their hitbox gets extended, and he starts talking shit about how, oh, this, where are you at? This isn't a hitbox. This is a hurtbox. It's like they're all hitboxes. A hitbox is a coding term, like a colloquial coding term for a collision detection bounding box that just got shortened to hitbox because it was a good way to show that this is talking about hit registration and not things like environmental collision. And the term hurtbox is a fighting game term invented by fighting game players because the differentiating between these player model hitboxes that detect incoming damage and these weapon hitboxes that convey dealing damage. Talking about them separately is very important, but in shooters it's not. So I've thrown together a really dumbass PowerPoint here, but essentially what happens, in in a game like a fighting game, you have these hitboxes that are essentially invisible, like these representation of the calculations that the computer makes in order to detect if two things are colliding. These boxes aren't even real. They're just drawn for your benefit whenever you do training mode or something like that. But essentially all the program sees is there is a box, and then it checks if there's another box that is touching this box. And if it does, it checks the IDs, and if there's that are attached to these boxes, and does whatever action is supposed to happen. So if you have an ID that says, oh, this is a player ID hitbox, and then this is a weapon hitbox, therefore damage happens. Or if you have two weapon hitboxes touching each other, then you have two attacks clanking. And then if you have two player hitboxes touching each other, then maybe there's like some kind of player collision between each other. And in fighting games, it's important to differentiate the two. But in shooters, all you care about is the target. These are hit scan weapons. these are the most common kinds of weapons you have in most shooters like Call of Duty or TF2 or Call of Duty or Valorant. Is you click the button and represent, a calculation is done represented by this line. Again, it's not real, it's just a representation. And if it goes through a hitbox, therefore it deals damage, and we call that hit scan because it scans for a hit. Like it searches for hitboxes to hit. The other thing, the kinds of weapons that you have are projectile weapons, but their hitboxes are so tiny you really don't talk about them unless they're crazy big for their the size of projectile. They're just not representative. And the same thing goes for explosions. Explosions will have a radius of damage, and you could call that a hitbox. But like, what's the point of calling these hurtboxes when you could just say this is a hitbox, this is a hit scan weapon, and you can talk about hit scan registration. This is a projectile, and you could talk in general the size of its hitbox is not going to come up. But if it you're going to be talking more about other properties such as the firing rate of the weapon or the damage or the knockback. And then this would be an explosion radius. And it's just much better terminology to differentiate these two, all of these, and to call all of these weapons hitboxes, except this is not a hitbox, it's a hit line. And these hurtboxes. So Sajam coming in here and like talking about FPSs, and FPS players as if they're like monkeys who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. It's frankly idiotic when you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. So I hope you in your future videos consider that players of other genres know what the fuck they're talking about in their own genre of games, and you don't know anything outside of fighting games.